So here's the big question, who's going to pay for all this?
Right. Well, the plan basically is set up like this: from 2010 to 2020, roughly, the U.S. would have to the federal government would have to supply about $420 billion in subsidies to get these massive scale of production for all the mix of photovoltaic systems, solar power systems, the compressed air systems, the direct current system. So $420 billion in subsidies. After 2020, essentially you've got like a 30-year subsidy payback kind of plan. So that by 2050, all the components of this new industry would be on their own. It's a lot of money. And yet, when you compare it to other national infrastructure expenditures over time, it's not unreasonable at all. It's actually less money than was spent to create the whole federal interstate highway system, which completely remade the system of commerce in the country. It's the high-speed communications network that's nationwide. Everybody's got high-speed internet. And well, how do you actually get high-speed internet? Well, there's a physical system that's been built, satellites, terrestrial, and that's estimated to have cost about $1 trillion. So on those scales, at least, $420 billion is still a lot, but it's not an unheard of amount of money.
And for those of you Grover Norquist fans out there who don't want the federal government investing in anything, you're listening to this presumably because you have an internet connection that the federal government invested in at first, and then the whole technology was privatized. That's the way cancer research works in this country too, where the federal government sponsors the initial research, and then the pharmaceutical companies take advantage of what's been learned through drug screenings, and they go and develop the drugs for profit. So it's really the standard business model.
Yeah, it's how a lot of things, the telephone system, there's a lot of systems, infrastructure type systems that's how essentially the government's putting in the seed money, if you want to think of it that way. Now, it's a lot of seed money. Nonetheless, farming systems, there are farm subsidy programs that are equally large in the hundreds of billions of dollars. So yeah, it is how things can get done.
And here's a question that should almost always be asked and very seldom does. If you think this is expensive, what's the cost of not doing it?
Right. If you calculate, you think about those 600 fossil fuel power plants, and if you calculate how much money is spent to purchase the fuel, that's the big thing that people don't really think about. The solar fuel is free. Fossil fuels cost a lot of money and has a lot of climate impact. That's something we haven't covered either, but this plan would also reduce carbon dioxide emissions to about a third of what they are now in 2050, assuming some level of growth as well.
It's a really interesting proposal, and it's one of those rare opportunities where we'll actually be able to track whether or not anything happens, and if it does, how well this actually works over the coming decades.
Yes, right.
Thanks a lot, Mark.
Okay, thank you.